Welcome to Disambiguation. I'm your host, Michael Fauscette. Each week, we interview experts in artificial intelligence, generative AI, and business automation to help business leaders understand how to use these tools for the biggest business impact. On today's episode, we're going to take a look at the intersection of U.S. immigration policy, tech innovation, and the future of the U.S. leadership in artificial intelligence. Now, first, tech podcast, not a political podcast, so I'm going to try very hard to stay away from any political commentary, except for the fact that some of the immigration policy that I want to talk about is, of course, political as well as having an impact on tech. So anyway, we'll go with that. The AI sector, we've heard this for the last year or so. We're really in the midst of a historic global talent shortage when it comes to AI. Analysts, investors, executives, all of them, have commented that there's just not enough AI skilled engineers, machine learning experts, data scientists, all the other related skills, and frankly, even down to not much easier to resolve, but even down to employees that are going to be using the tools as well. So, according to surveys, industry surveys, the roles in AI related fields, they're staying open for months. Some estimates put the talent gap in the tens of thousands. I know I read a comment the other day from Matt Hoffman from M13 Ventures who said the concern with all these policies being rolled out fairly haphazardly is that people don't have the certainty needed to make a significant investment. Is there another shoe about to drop? So, obviously the shortage alone is a crisis. But if you layer on top of that the recent changes in the H-1B visa program from the U.S. government, you can see, and they're obviously much more restrictive. We're seeing that this, is a significant risk. Frankly, it could exacerbate this current talent shortage that we're seeing across the industry. So in late September, a couple of weeks ago, actually, the Trump administration announced wide-ranging changes to the H-1B visa program, which, has long been the main pathway for bringing technical expertise into the country to join American companies. And this new policy, the big updates, and I'll just hit the highlights or lowlights, I guess, depends on your perspective. But they've added a $100,000 fee for each H-1B application on employees seeking to hire, employers rather, seeking to hire international workers, regardless of company size. There's no sort of, it's just a blanket $100K for an H-1B, for a new H-1B visa application. The cap, which, we've had for a long time, the cap remains at $65,000 annually, although 20,000 more have been added for advanced degrees or for folks holding an advanced degree. A selection model that favors this higher paid, higher skilled applicants, which actually causes a concern about, bringing up the next generation junior talent that, could come in and be, brought up through the ranks and learn by experience. So that could be a significant issue as well. And, while this seems pro-innovation, right? I mean, it does, we're focusing more on higher skilled applicants. It's startup founders, experts, warned that it disproportionately advantages smaller tech firms, particularly startups that have very limited resources, unlike Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, all of the the larger vendors that certainly can afford to cover this, even if it is an added expense. And then a certain amount of uncertainty about the rollout, the enforcement. It has left people in limbo somewhat. And, startups, obviously, the source of a lot of what's driving the innovation forward. It's the birthplace of new tech, breakthrough AI platforms. They're going to be hit by this. Venture capital investors, founders, smaller companies just can't absorb this kind of cost, making it really impossible, nearly impossible to access top global engineering talent. And some, have already reported that they, are reporting denied applications from the government, setbacks in their ability to compete. Early stage ventures, particularly, every hire matters. I mean, if you've done a small startup or been involved in an early stage startup, that everybody does, a number of jobs, and talent is extremely valuable because of the fact that the resources are just so limited, particularly, if you haven't closed a seed round and aren't in an A round or whatever, right? So, becomes the visa issue becomes a barrier to recruiting world-class talent, a financial barrier. And it really does threaten the ecosystem that's made Silicon Valley and US tech, a global leader, a global destination. And, there's a ripple effect across from an AI leadership perspective, because it is certainly, we're certainly the U.S. Home to a lot of the major AI advances that have happened over the last few years. And it really has relied on, a significant number of immigrant talent, to remain at the forefront. And, leaders at companies like Google, Microsoft, Tesla, they were, once H-1B visa holders. So it's, it has impact across the board. So clamping down with high fees, new restrictions, there's a real risk that we're going to force talent or make it an opportunity for talent to go elsewhere. Countries from Canada to India are rapidly courting the skilled workers that the U.S. is ready, apparently, to turn away. So this could certainly slow progress in the U.S.'s advance, in this global AI race. And it's certainly something that, we've flagged as analysts, researchers, who see AI, as a real defining technology for the next decade. And certainly I think that. Adnam Kavovovich, CEO of Chamber of Progress, highlighted this by saying, you're not going to find many startups who are going to be willing to pay $100,000 for H-1B in addition to salary for that H-1B. And then, startups, I said, they're hit hard. So 60% of high-profile AI startup founders are immigrants in the U.S. And the new policy, is really tough on them. Keystone of American innovation, certainly. Startups operate with tight budgets, small teams. I said this, so every key hire has outsized impact. Desmond Lim, co-founder of Workstream, said, as an early stage startup, every hire is invaluable, and we meticulously select candidates for the H-1B visa process. Due to the financial and time commitments involved, the fee is excessively burdensome. And the founder of Alma, Azita Marat, described the disruption. Our H-1B candidates was supposed to fly in, and we've said, let's pause everything, let's get more clarification. So a lot of confusion around this. It's a scenario repeating across the country, right? Startups were concerned they'd be disproportionately hurt by the new visas for skilled foreign workers, given limited resources. As every delayed or abandoned hire competitive advantage shifts potentially, for years. Sean Chen, CEO of Memories.ai, said talent's the single most important thing for startups now. If one person could execute really, really well, I think an additional $100,000 would be a small portion of their total value, but it still admits the strain this places on, smaller companies. So the U.S. owes much of its dominance in AI to this global talent pool that has, long made Silicon Valley, Boston, Austin, Atlanta, other New York, other centers like this for innovation, hotspots for innovation. Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, said we want all the brightest minds to come to the United States. Remember, immigration is the foundation of the American dream. We represent the American dream. Immigration is really important to our company, and is really important to our nation's future. So the message is really clear, right? The strength of the U.S. and the AI market comes from recruiting, retaining, inspiring the best in the world. Competing nations, all over the place, Canada, Germany, Taiwan, or China, are aggressively recruiting displaced talent. Ripple effect is really powerful. And if innovators can't build their futures here, they're going to go somewhere else. And honestly, the other piece of this that is certainly related, although, again, focus more on the more junior hires, but it doesn't take into account the impact of, a talent that is attracted by going to university in the U.S. and the level of fear and uncertainty from, the unpredictable, we'll call it, enforcement of immigration rules, including deporting people for randomly, created issues, is making it very difficult to attract that talent. I mean, a lot of people are saying they're just not going to come to the U.S. to go to university because it is just too uncertain. And it's likely to have a longer term impact on the number of and the skill level of AI workers in the U.S. So that's a compounding problem, right? So there are certainly, a lot of arguments around this. The government has claimed that these fees will protect American workers and ensure that only high value jobs go to foreign nationals. But, honestly, analysts like me, tech professionals, economists have argued that, the data shows the opposite. Highly skilled immigrants raise wages for workers. They enable startup growth and advance innovation ecosystem wide. So there is a compounding effect across the whole ecosystem because of that. So Matt Hoffman's warning that I mentioned about uncertainty echoes throughout the industry. People don't have the certainty needed to make a significant investment. Is there another shoe about to drop? I mean, that is as clearly articulates the problem. And, the abrupt changes, lack of guidance have left a lot of people very confused and some visa holders, in a bit of disarray, although certainly that clarification came out that it was going to apply to new, not, just existing. Other nations have responded pretty quickly, as you might imagine, offering easier pathways for talent that's turned away by the U.S. Tech hub, Toronto, Berlin, Bangalore. Lots of these tech centers are gearing up to capture this next wave of innovation. I mean, in the long run, the competitive advantage of the U.S. could easily be eroded because the best and brightest are going to seek opportunities elsewhere. Especially if they can't get in or they don't have the opportunity because the price is just too high. They're limited from a startup perspective. So, the question, and I asked Perplexity this question: are there better ways to do this? I'm not an immigration expert by any means, but I am an industry expert, and I've seen immigration attorneys and others, commenting on some other policies that could support startups without this strangulation effect that we're seeing on innovation because of the other changes. There's the International Entrepreneurs Rule, IER, which lets entrepreneurs stay up to 30 months if they demonstrate funding and job growth. So a way for a founder, founding team to get access to the U.S. The O1A, which is an extraordinary ability visa, recognizes global achievements, fast tracks top talent, ideal for founders, especially founders that already have a reputation, notable awards, some breakthroughs, that sort of thing. E2 treaty, investor, and L1 transfer visas, those give options for investors and founders moving companies or capital into the U.S. So that's another vehicle for them to get money and people into the U.S. The EB5 immigration investor visa, permanent residency for those that invest 800 to $1 million and are going to create 10 or more jobs. So another way for immigrant entrepreneur founders to get access to the U.S. and come to the U.S. There's some interesting global models too. And as I was looking around, I'll highlight a few that I looked at. France, for example, has a tech visa. They give 4-year residence to permanent for founders backed by accelerators or venture capital. That includes family relocation and unrestricted renewal. So they could stay if they're continuing their activities. Kazakhstan Astana Hub Startup Visa. So they're again trying to juice this and get drawing more talent that can give teams a 1 year renewable visa, zero income tax, free office space, startup support, infrastructure to move their startup to Kazakhstan. Taiwan has something they call the Employment Gold Card. Combines residency, work permit, multiple entry visas for professionals in tech, gives you fast relocation, and gives you some tax incentives. And then South Korea has this program called the Oasis program. The visas are tied to business training, R&D funding, incubator access, with structural support for tech startups. So another program designed to draw in technology talent and innovation to their country. So what could we do to help this policy and to help startups, particularly in the U.S.? Well, for one thing, and you heard me as I went through some of these country examples, we could create a dedicated U.S. startup visa that models on some of these European and Asian examples that I mentioned. That's focused on rapid processing, very flexible eligibility based on that level of innovation and talent and opportunity from a startup to attract that startup founders team, etc. You could expand the H-1B visa cap. We've talked about this off and on for many years in tech. You could expand it through university or research partnerships. So you could let founders come out of the lottery. I didn't mention this before, but there's a lottery every year to see who gets those 65,000 slots. And so if you had a way to get out of this, so founders get out of the lottery and the timeline restriction, so they'd have faster access to that visa to get in and get moving on whatever innovation they're working on, whatever startup they're working on. You could streamline the permanent residency options for high growth entrepreneurs to retain talent, drive innovation, give them preferential treatment if we have entrepreneurs that have come, immigrants have come to the country, they talented, they're driving innovation, they have a startup that's being successful, give them permanent residency. And then overall, and this probably goes for a lot of things in government, I don't know, not an expert, but reduce paperwork, offer targeted legal support. So, founders can navigate immigration. I mean, it is a extremely difficult set of rules and regulations to navigate. I've dealt with this, many times in my startup career, tech career. And so if we could make this a bit easier and provide legal support, you could, easily avoid these pitfalls that startups are facing today. And, nuanced startup-friendly visa policies could really help us attract global talent, boost innovation, fuel economic growth. It's particularly essential for AI and cutting-edge technology sectors. I mean, both Sam Altman from OpenAI and Jensen Huang of NVIDIA have called to streamline legal and immigration and financial incentives to match these international models that are focused on attracting, not deterring, the talent that we need. So, what's next, or what can we do? What can we expect? Well, these new H-1B policies layered on top of the talent shortage, on top of the attack on foreign students by the administration, represented an inflection point for U.S. position in global tech, I think, and could have significant long-term effects. The choices now, made in Congress, executive agencies in the government, and frankly in boardrooms, will help determine, whether the U.S. can retain that leadership, or whether we're going to cede ground to those, countries, geographies that are more welcoming to this innovative talent. So, to founders and investors whose careers are intertwined with the future of AI, stay informed, of course, and I'm going to try to keep up with that. I'll do another episode if we get some updates on it. Get involved. We need to advocate as hard as we can for solutions that keep the doors open for the best and brightest, as it say, wherever they may come from, right? So Jensen Huang said, "Immigration's the foundation of the American dream." That dream's worth protecting, and we want to maintain this leadership in an exciting time that we have an opportunity to really drive innovation forward from the U.S. out into the rest of the world. So if you're working in tech, AI, if you track global competitiveness, these new policies are one of the most consequential changes. That's a hard word to say. In recent years, the tension between national security, worker protection, innovation, it's now really playing out on the open stage, the world stage. And there are obviously lawsuits that are being filed. There are going to be more policy fights around this. The issue's not going away. So, the choices that we see in Washington today are really going to shape the future of U.S. technology and the global AI markets for years to come. And so, honestly, we need a way to get past this so that we can continue to drive innovation forward here in the U.S. Create opportunity for startups, create opportunity for innovation, create opportunity for talent, no matter where they're from. It's not a challenge or a way to hurt American workers. That creates opportunity for everyone. The more startups we create, more opportunity for anybody who is in that space and can perform in those companies. And remember, startups employ more than developers and engineers. They have marketers and financial people and content marketers and writers and researchers and all these other things. So it's an opportunity if we can get it right. But right now we're definitely in danger of exceeding some of this innovation, some of these innovative startups, some of the talent that we need here to other countries. So that's the episode for this week. Like I said, I just wanted to take a minute to talk this through. I'd been watching this develop. I actually wrote something about the talent shortage itself a few weeks ago, if you want to see that on the blog. But now this change in the immigration law, and then also the attack on students, or however you want to say that. I guess that's a little bit charged the way I just said that, but that challenge that students are seeing and starting to go elsewhere as well. All of those things play into the U.S. advantage in AI talent and in AI startups, in AI innovation, and could have far-reaching impact both in a positive or a negative way. So anyway, thanks for listening to this week, and we'll see you next week. And that's the show for this week. Thank you all for joining us. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the show. If you enjoy the show, please leave us a review to help others find us. For more research on AI and other software, check out arianresearch.com. If you're an expert in AI, generative AI, or business automation, either as a provider or an end user, email your information to disambiguation@arianresearch.com. Don't forget to join us next week. Disambiguation is an Arian Research production. I'm Michael Fauscette, and this is the Disambiguation Podcast.